to be progressive, to be radical, you're listening to your community members, you're listening to constituents, you're weighing, the harms that are, being perpetrated in certain counties, certain districts, and you're thinking of creative ways, new ways to reduce those harms, reduce those barriers, eliminate those barriers, eradicate them, abolish them. All these fun, beautiful words that the a lot of people do not like to talk about. You're thinking of ways to defund the police. I was going there. You're thinking of ways to defund the police, and what you're saying is like, I'm not saying that I do not care about public safety. I'm not saying all officers are bad. There are some amazing men and women on police force, within sheriff departments and all of those things, who really get behind the badge because they genuinely do believe in the ability to protect and serve. And they do genuinely want to make their community safe. I absolutely am aware of that. I'm not ignorant to that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of corruption. Yeah.
At the very same time, I'm gonna capitalize my however. I do know that there can be a defunding of the police department and rediversion of these programs, allocation of programs that focus on substance abuse, focus on domestic violence victims, focus on domestic violence abusers, focus on traumas. Right? I don't have a piece of hatred in my body towards my former abuser. Him and I do not speak often. I do speak to him at different times in life. He still sometimes struggles with substance abuse and mental health and things of that nature. But due to my own healing and due to my own knowledge and understanding of substance abuse, of alcoholism, of mental health issues, I see there is a bigger picture. As I told you the other day, he too was a victim. He too was a victim. He came from the poverty and the issues that he did. He didn't have the help and the resources that he needed. And instead of, fighting to heal, he found himself a victim instead. And so I say that to say, if there had been systems in place when I, as a victim, did not know what it looked like, right? I'm 18, 19 years old and my boyfriend's beating me. And I'm like, oh my God, but I love him. And he went through XYZ growing up. That happens a lot for so many victims, and somebody that is a victim of domestic violence or someone that works with victims of domestic violence is well aware that you can't force someone to leave before they're ready. And a lot of times, they do genuinely believe that, that they can save their abuser, right? Stockholm syndrome. They do genuinely believe they can save their abuser. They do genuinely believe their abuser when they say, hey, I'm not ever going to do that to you again. If there had been systems in place, if there had been programs in place for someone such as himself, for someone such as me, readily available. So even when I was not the one calling the police, all these other community members were calling the police on my behalf. If the police would have said, you know what, Miss Williams, I understand you're not ready to leave your abuser. However, I need you to start attending these domestic violence, trainings. I need you to start learning about the cycle of abuse. I need you to, and mandate it for me. Go ahead and mandate it for me, because I was not aware that I was a victim. I believe that I was in love with someone that was going through difficulties and struggles. And when he got high or when he got drunk, he didn't know how to take, where to take that anger and frustration out. So I've always believed him when he said it wasn't going to happen again, because initially there would be a night of abuse and then he wouldn't abuse me again for like 3-4 months. So I was genuinely believing that the change was happening, right? That's unfortunately what a lot of domestic violence victims believe. And then on his side as the abuser, it's like, hey, not only are we going to prosecute you and place you on probation, right? Because that's what initially was happening for him. We're going to mandate you attend these domestic violence, programs. Unfortunately, while he was mandated after so many convictions of needing to attend domestic violence abuser programs, these programs cost. And I don't remember what the fee was, but it was like $100-something per class. And he was having to take these classes for 52 weeks. Well, this is no excuse to him. This was the reality
It
because,
was
of course,
cost out of his own pocket.
it was out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
So this was no excuse for him. It's the reality, because I knew, he was on fixed income because he had, again, mental health issues, right? So he was on Social Security disability due to his mental health. And with that, he was not able to pay the rent and, his portion of the rent, his portion of the bills, and pay the programs. These programs, if you do not pay your fee, you can't attend the class. As soon as you miss one class, you are kicked out of the program. You have to go back to the court. You have to be reinstated. You pay a new reinstatement fee and your 52 weeks start all over. So at points in time when he was actively willing to participate in the program, he could not afford the program. So I'm not advocating for domestic violence abusers. However, I am also very much so aware of the difficulties of the system, and when someone is willing to get help and seek that help and participate in their training programs, however, they simply cannot afford them. And I've heard this story true and through, as you know, I've worked with many community members that themselves have also been sentenced to anger management classes, substance abuse treatment programs. A lot of these programs cost, and community members cannot afford them. Well, if we take money from the police department, right? If we defund the police department and we put this money into these systems, there's no longer an excuse for the abuser.